AITA for calling off the wedding after hearing my fiancée say I was only her security? I'm Henry, 36, and until that weekend, I was the kind of guy who believed engagement photos could look cheesy and still mean something. Ava was 34. We had been together for years, and both families treated our wedding like a formality rather than a decision. I had a key to her mother's house. Ava had a drawer at my place, a charger on my nightstand, and 3 different mugs she claimed tasted better than all the others. My younger sister, Paige, had already sat through multiple conversations about napkin colors, table linens, and whether ivory looked warmer than white. I wasn't walking toward marriage with my eyes closed. At least, I didn't think I was. I just believed that being patient during a stressful engagement was part of being an adult. Ava made that easy to believe because she was wonderful in ways people could see. She remembered birthdays. She sent my mother flowers after a minor medical procedure. She knew which cousin needed to be kept away from which uncle at family dinners. When we were around other people, she touched my arm when I spoke and laughed at jokes she had heard 20 times. She called me her calm, her safe place, the one person she could count on. Those words used to make me feel loved. Looking back, she had been telling me exactly how she saw me. I was just translating it into something more romantic. The first real tension started with the wedding budget. We had agreed on a number months earlier. It wasn't a tiny wedding, but it wasn't supposed to become a financial event that followed us into the marriage. We divided the expenses, opened a separate planning account for shared costs, and kept a spreadsheet of deposits and due dates. Then the upgrades began. Ava wanted a larger floral arrangement at the ceremony entrance because the original design looked empty in the mock-up. The photographer offered an additional package with a second shooter and a longer reception window. The caterer suggested a late-night food station. Each item sounded small when she described it. Each item came with a deadline. One night, Ava sat across from me at the kitchen table with her laptop open and rubbed both hands over her face. "I'm drowning in invoices," she said. "You're better at handling this stuff, Henry. We're both looking at the same spreadsheet. I know, but you're more stable. I don't want to start our marriage with me panicking over every payment." There was that word again. Stable. I agreed to cover an extra vendor deposit and part of the photographer balance. Ava came around the table, wrapped her arms around me, and kissed the side of my head. "This is why I love you," she said. "You always make things feel safe." At the time, I heard gratitude. Later, I realized I should have paid more attention to what she was grateful for. The prenup conversation happened about 2 months before the wedding. I didn't spring it on her in an argument. I brought it up during a quiet Sunday afternoon while we were reviewing our list of documents. Ava had debts I did not have, and I owned assets that predated our relationship. I told her I wanted an agreement that protected both of us and made our expectations clear. Her expression changed before I finished the sentence. "A prenup?" she said. "Yes. 2 months before our wedding. We've talked about keeping finances transparent." "That isn't transparency. That's planning for failure." I told her it was the opposite. I said it meant we could make decisions while we loved each other instead of fighting over them if something ever went wrong. She pushed her chair back. "So you think I'm after your money?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." "Ava, you've asked about combining accounts and changing the house paperwork. I think we should discuss all of it together." Her eyes filled immediately. That was something she could do without appearing theatrical. No raised voice. No dramatic sobbing. Just a wounded look that made me feel like I had accused an innocent person of something ugly. "You're making me feel like a stranger, Henry. That's not what I want. Trust means not asking questions like that." That sentence bothered me more than the argument. I should have stayed with that feeling. Instead, I spent the next hour reassuring her that I loved her, that I wasn't planning an exit, and that the agreement could protect her too. By the end of the conversation, I was apologizing. Nothing had been signed. The subject kept getting postponed. A week later, Paige asked me to meet her for lunch. We were halfway through our food when she put down her fork and said, "Can I say something without you immediately defending Ava?" "That depends on what you say." That answer is already a problem. I leaned back. "Go ahead." Paige glanced around as if Ava might somehow be sitting at the next table. "She jokes about you being the safe choice too much." I frowned. "What does that mean?" At the bridal shower, one of her friends asked how she knew you were the one. Ava said, "At some point, butterflies stop paying the bills." Everyone laughed. It was a joke. Maybe. Then she said you were the kind of man who would never embarrass her because you care too much about being decent. That sounds like a compliment. Paige stared at me for a second. I'm not saying she doesn't like you, she said. I'm saying I don't know if she respects you. I felt myself getting defensive, which was probably why Paige had chosen a public place. You've never been close with her. I tried. You two have different personalities. I know. That's why I kept my mouth shut. But being loved and being useful can look similar when someone is careful. I told her she was reading too much into wedding stress. Paige backed off, but not before saying one last thing. You look happy, so I've stayed quiet. I hope I'm wrong. For the next few weeks, I wanted her to be wrong badly enough that I ignored the moments that suggested otherwise. Daniel was one of those moments. He was Ava's ex from years ago. They had stayed loosely connected through mutual friends. I had met him twice, and both times he acted friendly in the specific way some men act when they want you to know they have history with your partner. He never crossed an obvious line. He did not touch Ava inappropriately or send explicit messages. He simply remained available. When Ava and I disagreed, his name occasionally appeared. Daniel always understood why holidays are emotional for me. Daniel knew when I needed empathy instead of solutions. Daniel and I could talk for hours without turning everything into a plan. The first few times, I let it go. I did not want to become the jealous fiancée who demanded that every man from her past disappear. One night, I woke after midnight and saw the glow of Ava's phone under the blanket. Everything okay? I asked. She locked the screen. Brooke can't sleep. Brooke was her best friend and maid of honor. Is she all right? Wedding stuff. Ava kissed my shoulder, turned over, and ended the conversation. The next morning, Daniel's name appeared near the top of her recent messages when she opened her phone to show me a photo. She moved too quickly for me to read anything, then spent the rest of breakfast being unusually affectionate. I wasn't convinced she was sleeping with him. What bothered me was different. It felt like she was keeping a door open and calling it closure. 3 weeks before the wedding, Ava pushed the house issue harder. The house was mine from before our engagement. We had discussed adding her after marriage, but I wanted the prenup and the property terms handled together. That seemed reasonable to me. Ava came over one evening with printed paperwork and set it on the coffee table. I talked to the legal contact, she said. We can get this started now. I picked up the first page. Why now? Because we're getting married. In 3 weeks. Exactly. We haven't finished the financial agreement. Her mouth tightened. Do we need to? Yes, I think we do. She stood and crossed her arms. This is supposed to be symbolic. Then it can be symbolic after we sign everything properly. You're missing the point. What is the point? The point is that I want to enter our marriage knowing you see me as family. I do see you as family. Then put my name on the house. I set the paperwork back down. I'm not signing anything because you created an emotional deadline. She went completely still. If you need a lawyer to love me, maybe you shouldn't marry me. That isn't fair. No, Henry. What isn't fair is asking me to promise you forever while you keep one foot outside the marriage. She started crying. Not loudly, just enough to make me feel cold and guilty. I hugged her, but I did not sign. That was the first boundary I held. It was also the moment her behavior changed. She became sweeter in public and colder in private. She sent me messages that said, "Can't wait to be your wife," then ignored practical questions about the prenup. She posted one of our engagement photos and wrote that she had found a man who made commitment feel easy. When I asked why the shared wedding email password had changed, she said the planner had requested it for security. When I checked with the planner, she said she had made no such request. Ava brushed that off as a misunderstanding. You're tracking every little thing now, she said. Do you realize how stressful that is? I'm trying to stay informed about our own wedding. You're searching for problems. Then give me the password. She stared at me for a long moment, picked up her phone, and sent it. No apology. That night, I called Grant. Grant had been my best friend long enough to know when I was asking for advice and when I was asking for permission to ignore reality. I told him about the money, the prenup, the house paperwork, and the changed password. He listened without interrupting. Finally, he said, "Do not sign anything tonight." I wasn't planning to. Good. Do not pay another invoice until you know what it is. Keep the records. Keep important conversations in writing. You think she's trying to steal from me? I think you're asking the wrong question. What's the right one? Why does the person you're marrying need you confused and rushed? I didn't answer. Anger is expensive, he continued. Documentation is cheaper. Don't accuse her of anything you can't prove. Just protect your position. I promised I would. Wedding week arrived before I felt ready for it. Relatives filled the hotel block. The seating chart changed twice because Ava's aunt refused to sit near an old family friend. The florist emailed about a delivery window. The photographer needed the remaining balance before the ceremony. The caterer sent a final invoice with an added service charge Ava claimed we had already discussed. We had not. Every hour came with a small emergency. Ava moved through all of it beautifully. She hugged arriving relatives, answered vendor calls, smiled in photos, and made sure everyone knew how grateful she was. At home, she barely looked at me unless she needed a payment approved. The afternoon before the rehearsal dinner, she placed her phone on the kitchen counter and went to the bedroom to change. The screen lit up. Daniel. The message preview read, "After this weekend, you'll finally know what you actually want." I did not touch the phone. When Ava returned, I asked her directly, "Why is Daniel telling you that you'll know what you want after this weekend?" She stopped adjusting her earring. "You read my messages?" It appeared on the screen. "He's being dramatic." "What does it mean?" "I don't know, Henry. Daniel talks like that." "Why is he talking to you about what you want the day before our wedding?" "Our rehearsal dinner." "You know what I mean." She picked up the phone and put it in her purse. "He thinks I'm overwhelmed." "Have you been talking to him about us?" "I talked to my friends." "He's your ex. And you're acting like my probation officer." I asked a question. "No, you're trying to ruin a happy week because you're scared." "Scared of what?" "Being a husband." The answer was so polished that I almost admired it. She had turned her ex's message into evidence of my failure in less than 30 seconds. I did not argue. I went outside, called Grant, and told him what happened. "Still no accusations," he said. "Still no signatures. I feel like an idiot." "You'll be an idiot if you ignore facts. Right now, you have a bad message and a pattern." "That sounds like enough." "It's enough to slow down. It isn't enough to explode in a kitchen and let her tell everyone you became unstable." He was right. So I went back inside. Ava was standing near the sink with her arms folded. "I'm not discussing Daniel again tonight," she said. "Fine. You believe me?" "I believe we have a serious conversation coming." Her face hardened. "After the wedding?" "No. Before." She walked past me without responding. The rehearsal dinner was held in a private room at the wedding venue. The planner had arranged assigned tables, candles, printed menus, and a microphone near a small open space where people could give speeches. Everything looked expensive and effortless, which meant a lot of people had worked hard to hide the effort. Daniel was there. Ava had insisted he be invited because he was basically an old family friend. He wore a dark jacket, shook my hand, and said, "Big weekend." "That's one way to put it," I said. He smiled as if we shared a private joke. Paige saw him and looked at me from across the room. I gave her a small shake of my head. "Not now." Brooke floated between tables, checking on Ava and laughing with the bridesmaids. She had helped organize most of the evening and seemed almost as invested in the wedding photos as Ava was. Lillian, Ava's mother, pulled me aside before dinner. "Ava says you're stressing her about money," she said. "I've asked about invoices. A bride should not have to beg her future husband for stability. I've paid more than we agreed." "That is not the point." "What is the point?" Lillian glanced toward Ava, who was posing with two cousins. "The point is that after all these years, she should know she can depend on you." I looked at her and wondered how many people had been using the same word without realizing what it revealed. Dependable. Stable. Safe. Not loved. Not respected. Not chosen. Useful. Dinner began. People complimented the food and the room. Someone at my table told me I was lucky. Someone else said Ava looked like she belonged on the cover of a bridal magazine. She did. That was the hardest part. Nothing about her looked false. After the main course, the speeches started. Grant kept his short and kind. Paige made a joke about my inability to choose between two nearly identical ties. Brooke told a story about Ava knowing exactly what she wanted since childhood. Then Ava took the microphone. She stood beneath warm lights in a cream dress and looked directly at me. "Henry," she said, "you are the safest place I have ever known." People made soft sounds around the room. Lillian dabbed her eyes. Ava continued, "You've taught me that love isn't about chasing excitement. It's about choosing the person who stays when life gets complicated." Tomorrow, I get to choose you forever. Everyone applauded. For about 30 seconds, I wanted to believe her so badly that I did. I felt ashamed of my suspicions. I told myself Daniel's message was vague. The password issue was wedding chaos. The house argument had been emotional, not calculated. Then my phone buzzed. It was a voice memo from Brooke. I assumed it was a vendor detail or a recording she wanted included in some wedding video. I put the phone away while Ava finished her toast. A minute later, Brooke looked at me from across the room. Her face changed. My phone buzzed again. Brooke, don't open that. Then another message. Brooke, wrong person. Delete it, please. I looked at her. She had gone pale. I stood and walked into the hallway outside the private room. The voice memo was just under 2 minutes long. I played it. There was background noise, probably from earlier that day. I heard Brooke laughing. Another bridesmaid said something I couldn't make out. Then Ava's voice came through clearly. He thinks this is love. I think it's security. Someone laughed. Ava continued. I care about him. Obviously. But he's safe. Once the house paperwork is done, I'll have options. Brooke said, what about the prenup? Ava laughed again. He won't push it once the wedding photos are everywhere. He's already spent too much, and he'd rather die than look cruel. The other woman asked something about Daniel. Ava lowered her voice, but I still heard enough. Daniel gets me. Henry funds the life. Those are different things. There was more laughter, then Brooke's voice saying, you are terrible. Ava answered, I'm practical. I stopped the memo. I did not need the rest. For a few seconds, I stared at the patterned carpet in the hallway. I could hear applause through the closed doors. My hands were cold. My first impulse was to walk back in, throw the phone on the table, and demand an explanation. Then Brooke started texting. Please delete that. You weren't supposed to hear it. She was just venting. Don't make this a thing tonight. Henry, please. You will ruin everything if you play that. The memo hurt. Brooke's messages confirmed it. I saved the file to 2 places and took screenshots. Then I called Grant. He answered on the first ring. What happened? I have proof. My voice sounded strange even to me. What kind? A recording. Ava talking to Brooke. She said I'm security. She said once the house paperwork is done, she'll have options. She said I won't push the prenup because I care too much about looking cruel. Grant was silent for a moment. Send it to me. I did. Now listen carefully, he said. Do not threaten her. Do not touch her phone. Do not move any money that isn't clearly yours. I know. Save everything. Pause the property paperwork. Stop any scheduled payments coming directly from your account if you legally can. Tell the planner not to authorize new charges under your name. I'm canceling the wedding. I know. I'm doing it tonight. Another pause. Privately or publicly? She built the pressure publicly. Every person in that room thinks I'm supposed to go through with this because too much money has been spent. That doesn't automatically make public the best choice. If I pull her into a room, she'll cry, tell everyone I panicked over finances, and spend the next 12 hours sending relatives after me. You might be right. I'm not playing the whole memo. Good. I'm going to say enough that she can't rewrite it. Grant exhaled. Then stay calm. The second you lose control, she becomes the victim. I opened my email and sent a short message to the legal contact handling the house documents. Do not file, record, submit, or finalize any property changes. I am withdrawing authorization until further notice. Please confirm receipt. Then I messaged the wedding planner. Do not approve additional expenses or charge any balance to my personal payment methods without written authorization from me. I need a list of all pending charges immediately. I checked my banking app. 2 payments were scheduled from my personal account for the following morning. I canceled the transfers, saved the confirmations, and left the money in place. I did not touch the shared planning account. I wanted to yell. Instead, I made a list. Save the evidence. Pause the paperwork. Stop pending transfers. Cancel the wedding. Leave. When I returned to the room, Ava was laughing with her bridesmaids. Lillian touched my sleeve. You look pale. I'm fine. Paige saw my face and came over. What happened? She asked quietly. Stay near Grant. Her expression sharpened. Henry, please. She nodded and moved toward him. Ava picked up the microphone again after dessert. I just want to thank everyone one more time, she began. I walked toward her. Can I have a moment? Her smile held, but her eyes changed. Now. Yes. She handed me the microphone. The room quieted. People expected a groom's speech. I looked at the tables, the flowers, the printed menus, and the relatives who had traveled to watch us promise each other a future. Then I looked at Ava. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "I know many of you spent money, took time off, and traveled to be here. That's why I owe you the truth." Ava stepped closer. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "There will not be a wedding tomorrow." At first, no one reacted. The sentence was too far outside what they expected. Then chairs shifted. Someone said my name. Ava grabbed my forearm. "Henry, stop." I removed her hand without force. "You're humiliating me," she whispered. "You made the plan in private. I'm ending it in public because you involved everyone in the lie." Her face lost all color. Brooke stood near the bridesmaids' table, staring down at the floor. Lillian rose from her chair. "What is this?" she demanded. I kept my eyes on Ava. 10 minutes ago, Brooke accidentally sent me a voice memo. Ava turned toward Brooke. Brooke shook her head quickly. "I didn't mean to." Ava looked back at me. "It was private." "That isn't a denial." "It was a joke." I held up my phone. "I'm going to play 2 short parts. Nothing else." Ava reached for the microphone. "Henry, don't." I stepped back and pressed play. Her recorded voice filled the room. "He thinks this is love. I think it's security." I stopped the clip, moved forward a few seconds, and played the second line. "Once the house paperwork is done, I'll have options." Then I ended it. I did not play the part about Daniel. I did not play the laughter. I did not play every humiliating word. I did not need to. The silence afterward felt heavy enough to bend the room. Ava's eyes filled with tears. That is completely out of context. What context makes it better? I was venting. You were planning. No, I wasn't. You discussed the prenup, the house, the wedding photos, and the fact that you believed I was too embarrassed to stop this. She glanced around the room and seemed to realize that everyone was watching. Her voice softened. "Henry, please. We can talk privately. That option existed before you used this wedding to pressure me. It was girl talk. Then marry someone who enjoys being the punchline." A few people looked away. Daniel stood and started moving toward the door. Someone at a nearby table said, "Why is Daniel leaving?" He stopped. "I'm not involved in whatever this is." Ava turned on him. "Don't." That one word did more damage than anything I could have said. Daniel raised both hands. "Ava and I have history. That doesn't mean I did anything." "I didn't say you did," I said. He looked at me, then at the room. I never wanted to be part of public drama. He left anyway. Lillian came around the table. "You chose the cruelest possible way to hurt my daughter." I looked at her. "Your daughter counted on me being too afraid of looking cruel to protect myself. You could have handled this privately." She planned to use the public wedding, the photos, and all of you as pressure. I'm not giving her 12 hours to tell everyone I abandoned her over money. Ava started crying harder. "You are throwing away our entire life." "No, I'm refusing the version you planned for me." I turned back toward the guests. "The wedding is canceled. The property paperwork has been stopped. Any payments from my personal funds that have not been legally finalized will not continue. I'm sorry that all of you were dragged into this." Ava stared at me. "You care more about money than me." I felt something inside me settle. I was ready to marry someone who loved me. I just found out I was marrying someone who was waiting for paperwork. Then I handed the microphone to the planner. The room erupted the second I let go of it. People stood. Lillian shouted my name. One of Ava's relatives called me heartless. Another person asked Brooke what else she knew. Ava tried to follow me, but Paige stepped between us. "Not now," Paige said. "You stay out of this," Ava snapped. I stayed out of it for years. "I'm done." Grant took my shoulder and guided me toward the exit. Behind me, Ava yelled, "Henry, if you walk out, we are finished." I did not turn around. That was the first thing she said all night that we agreed on. Grant drove me away. For the first few minutes, none of us spoke. Paige sat in the back seat. I stared at my hands and noticed they were shaking. I did not feel powerful. I felt like I had stepped out of a burning house and only then noticed the smoke in my lungs. When we reached my place, Paige followed me inside. Ava's mug was still beside the sink. Her shoes were near the door. A garment bag hung from the hallway closet. Ordinary things looked suddenly hostile. Grant took my phone when it started ringing. "Do you want this off?" "No. I need the records." "Then mute it." I muted Ava, Lillian, and Brooke without blocking them. Grant told me not to delete anything. Paige opened a cabinet, took out 3 glasses, then changed her mind and filled them with water. I should have pushed harder, she said. This isn't your fault. I saw it. So did I. You defended her every time. I wanted to be fair. Paige sat across from me. You kept calling it trust because you didn't want to call it fear. That landed harder than I expected. I had been afraid of being suspicious, afraid of being controlling, afraid of canceling after deposits were paid, afraid of humiliating our families, afraid of becoming the villain in a story Ava had already started writing. By trying so hard to avoid looking unreasonable, I had nearly walked into a marriage where every reasonable boundary could be used against me. The next morning, I woke after less than 2 hours of sleep. My phone showed dozens of calls, texts, and voicemails. Ava's first messages were angry. How could you do that to me? You destroyed everything. You made me look like a monster. Then they became apologetic. Please come talk to me. I was scared. I said things I didn't mean. Then accusatory again. You never made me feel secure. You pushed me into talking that way. A private conversation should not define our relationship. Lillian left a voicemail. You chose spectacle over decency. Whatever Ava said, you did not have the right to humiliate her in front of both families. You have damaged her reputation and ours. Brooke sent 3 messages. Please don't share the full memo. I swear I didn't know she was serious. She said things when she was stressed. I did not respond to any of them. The wedding planner emailed me a list of the charges that could still be stopped. Some deposits were non-refundable. The caterer had already ordered food. The photographer kept the booking deposit but canceled the final balance. The florist had a partial cancellation fee. The venue retained a painful amount of money. I accepted it. Losing deposits hurt. It was still cheaper than paying attorneys to untangle a marriage that never should have happened. The legal contact confirmed that the property paperwork had not been finalized and would remain paused. That email was the first moment I felt actual relief. There was no deed change, no new ownership interest, no marriage certificate, no legal tie that would take months or years to unwind. Just grief, humiliation, and a lot of invoices. Those were survivable. By noon, the story had split into versions. In Ava's version, I had panicked over money and publicly punished her for private venting. In Lillian's version, I was a cold man who had always planned to protect my assets more than my future wife. A few guests told me I had made the right decision but used the wrong method. They said I should have pulled Ava aside, canceled quietly, and let the families find out the next morning. Other people said that if I had done that, Ava would have controlled the explanation before I reached the parking lot. Both sides had a point. I did not enjoy playing the recording. I did not enjoy watching Ava realize her perfect bridal weekend was collapsing. But I also knew exactly what would have happened if I had confronted her alone. She would have cried. She would have told Lillian I was afraid of commitment. She would have told the bridesmaids I was obsessed with money. She would have called my family before I could. By breakfast, the voice memo would have become a misunderstanding, and I would have become the unstable groom who abandoned a devoted woman hours before the ceremony. Ava had counted on social pressure as part of her plan. I removed it in the same room where she was using it. That afternoon, she sent me a message long enough that I had to scroll several times. She said she loved me. She said security was not an insult. She said every woman wanted stability and that I was twisting normal fear into betrayal. She said Daniel was only emotional support because I was too practical. She said she had never actually planned to leave. She said the house comment meant she would have options as an equal partner, not options to hurt me. Then she said I had proven she was right not to trust me because I had chosen embarrassment over compassion. I read the message twice. Then I replied once. You didn't lose me because of money. You lost me because you tried to marry me while planning your exit. After that, I stopped responding. Paige helped with the gifts. We made a simple list of who had sent what, returned unopened packages, and sent short notes that did not include details. The wedding planner handled vendor notices. Grant helped me match bank records to contracts so nobody could claim I had taken shared funds. The ring receipt and insurance documents were separate. Ava returned the ring through Lillian after 2 days, though Lillian included a note saying she hoped I understood what my performance had cost everyone. I understood exactly what it had cost. That was why I did it before the cost became permanent. Ava was left responsible for expenses she had personally agreed to cover. Her mother tried to pressure me into paying them anyway because a gentleman honors commitments. I replied with copies of the signed contracts showing whose name was attached to which balance. I did not add commentary. Documentation was cheaper. Brooke's life became complicated almost immediately. Ava blamed her for sending the memo. Other bridesmaids blamed her for helping Ava hide the truth. Brooke called me once, and when I answered, she sounded exhausted. I never thought she would actually do anything, she said. You heard her discuss the house and the prenup. She talks. You laughed. I was uncomfortable. You told me to delete it. She went quiet. I was trying to save the wedding. That was the problem. She asked whether I planned to share the entire recording publicly. I told her no. I had preserved it for my own protection and had played only the lines necessary to explain why the wedding was canceled. She thanked me as if I had done her a favor. I hadn't. I simply refused to become crueler than I needed to be. Daniel disappeared even faster. He told mutual acquaintances that Ava had misrepresented their conversations and that he had never encouraged her to leave me. A week later, someone forwarded Paige a message in which Daniel said he wanted no part of the aftermath. Apparently, being Ava's secret emotional exception had made him feel important. Becoming evidence embarrassed him. Ava reached out to him after the wedding collapse, and he pulled away. He had enjoyed being the man who understood her when the consequences belonged to someone else. Once her choices carried public costs, his loyalty became much less romantic. Lillian continued blaming me for several weeks. Then relatives began comparing what they had heard. People remembered the pressure about the house. A cousin admitted Ava had joked at the bridal shower that I was too invested to back out. One bridesmaid confirmed that Ava talked about posting the wedding photos immediately because, in her words, once everyone sees us as married, Henry will stop overthinking the paperwork. The public story did not stay clean for her. It did not stay clean for me either. Some people still thought I had been vindictive. One uncle told me, canceling was right. Playing the recording was revenge. Maybe part of it was. I would be lying if I said there was no satisfaction in watching the truth interrupt Ava's speech. But satisfaction was not the reason I took the microphone. I did it because she had built a room full of pressure and expected me to submit to it. I did it because she had already decided that my fear of embarrassment mattered more than my consent. I did it because a private confrontation would have given her time to mobilize every person at that dinner against me before I could protect my finances, my property, or my reputation. Most of all, I did it because I finally understood that calm did not mean compliant. For years, I had treated patience like proof of maturity. Sometimes it was. Other times, it was just the polite name I gave my refusal to confront what was happening. A week after the canceled wedding, Paige came over to help pack the last of Ava's things. We folded clothes into boxes and wrapped the mugs in old newspaper. On the counter sat a bag of unused wedding favors with our initials printed on them. Paige picked one up. Do you want to keep any of these? No. Good. They're ugly. I laughed for the first time in days. She set the favor back in the bag. Leaving now is not failing, she said. Marrying her would have been. I know. Do you? I looked around the room. It felt emptier, but it also felt like mine again. I'm getting there. The future I had imagined was gone. That part hurt in ways I could not solve with records or cancellation emails. I missed the woman I thought Ava was. I missed small routines. I missed waking up without needing to question whether affection had a financial deadline attached to it. But I did not miss the pressure. I did not miss being told that questions were betrayal. I did not miss wondering whether Daniel's name would appear every time I failed to provide the exact kind of comfort Ava wanted. I did not miss being valued mainly for what I would never do. Embarrass her, leave her, challenge her, or force her to answer clearly. The wedding never happened. The property documents remained canceled. Our finances were separated. The remaining gifts were returned. Ava's apologies eventually stopped when she realized they would not reopen the door. Lillian's voicemail stopped when I stopped listening. Brooke and Ava's friendship did not survive. Daniel moved on the moment being involved stopped feeding his ego. I lost money, relationships, and the future I had spent years building in my head. I kept my home. I kept my legal freedom. I kept the part of myself Ava had mistaken for weakness. I did not abandon her at the altar. I abandoned the version of myself that would have married a lie just to avoid embarrassment. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.